Welcome to Follow the Calling.
Be confident in knowing how to get the results you want.
Be secure in knowing who you really are.
Be inspired by the possibility of the difference you're here to make.
Follow your calling and experience true fulfillment. So welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Follow the Calling, where we are going to be speaking into what to do when you know there's more for you in life, but you don't know what it is and you don't know how to get it, which is such a perfect continuation of the conversation we were just having in the last episode. You brought this up a lot, Andy, in that space about how you were feeling like you wanted to change your career, but you didn't have any idea of what career that could possibly be. So you didn't feel like you had any direction as to how to move forward with that. And that is, and I think in that episode as well, I alluded to there are things that you and I have done that have made this even more clear. So it really just feels like the next step in the process of what we were talking about last time. So your need to know how is killing your dreams, but then what do you do when you know there's more for you in life, but you don't know what that is or how to get it? Like, these two things really go so hand in hand. And this conversation feels like the next level, the next step of helping to sort this out for yourself.
Yeah, right.
So,
there's also the part that even once you decide which direction you want to head, difficulty comes up and we get stopped, and then we wonder, well, is this really worth it? Have I got what it takes to get past this difficulty? And if I have got what it takes, is it going to be worthwhile? So we then end up giving up on our direction and changing direction. So it's like, from where we left off on the other on last week's podcast, it was how committed are we to the direction in which we're going? How much conviction do we have that this is who we truly are? And how much doubt that we have that this might not be who we are, that ends up leading to us, just changing direction and, I'll just try something else. Maybe it's this over here. And then the shiny object syndrome of getting distracted over to here. And then you try this thing and difficulty comes up. So then you shift over here, and it's that being immovable in the path, so that you're continuously moving in one direction, and that you actually have some kind of feeling of progress in your life as well, right? Rather than feeling like you're always starting again. That for me was a key thing. It's understanding what the path is so that you can commit to it and just keep going no matter what. Right. Removing that doubt,
Right. Because that starting and stopping again, that just gets exhausting.
Yeah.
That gets really exhausting. I think it all has to do with you, but it has to do with the relationships that we have with people. Like, we get tired of being excited about something and then, and sharing with people, and then feeling like we never follow through, and then feeling like there's that perception of us out there that we never finish anything that we start, and we're always excited about the next big thing, like all of those things. And then what that does for us internally,
destroys your confidence, destroys
having all of that. So, which just contributes to the doubt, right? So it definitely, you can feel like a ship lost at sea. Yeah. I was going to say something about a fish, but I'm like, no, a ship is more appropriate. You can feel like a fish out of water. Yeah. A fish out of water, or ship lost at sea. And chasing one thing after the next, and hoping and wishing that the next thing is going to actually be the thing that you can feel like you've been in integrity with and sharing with everyone, right?
Yeah.
So
the thing that's going to make the difference to your life that you're looking for is that feeling of more, and it's just hoping that this thing is going to be the thing that's going to make the difference that you're looking for. And never really knowing, going into it with doubt and never really knowing, removes all of the commitment and direction and focus from that action. So it's about, like I say, it's, for me, it was always about just removing the doubt. You know?
It feels to me very much like a journey of trying to find yourself.
Yeah.
Trying one thing and then the next thing. And I was like, well, is this me? Well, is this me? Well, is this me?
Yeah. It's stupid. That seems like such a stupid conversation to be having with yourself, doesn't it? Because of course, all the time there you are, you're like trying to find yourself, and like, for God's sake, here I am. I'm here. Why does it feel like I'm not alive in my own body? Why does it feel like I'm not in the driving seat of my, or in the driver's seat, sorry, as you would say, in my own life, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like a spectator in my own life. You know, that's how it felt to me. And it was like, that is intensely frustrating, deeply disempowering. And just left me, it was destroying my confidence, like when that was going on. And it left me, as the longer that went on, it left me feeling less and less inclined to go again. So I started to become jaded and cynical, and started to just go, you know what? Maybe I just never was meant to sort of be anything more than this. Maybe this is all there is. Maybe this.
And then
you just, right. And then something happens, right? But
and then more is still calling you,
right?
And so you have to go again. You have to go there. You just have to. You can't not. As much as you don't want to, or as much as you're jaded and cynical about doing this again, you just find yourself going there again.
But you know what?
Because it's still calling. It
is still calling. And you can't not go again because you're not happy. But at the same time, you go again knowing full well you're almost preempting it to fail, because you know how it went the last time, right?
Yeah.
So every time it happens, you go into it with less and less positivity, less and less optimism, confidence. Less and less confidence, and less possibility for it to succeed. And so I found myself going on a downward spiral, in as much as I knew that I was taking this kind of sense of brokenness and lack into everything I was doing, and it was doomed to fail, but I couldn't not go and do it. So I was doomed to this downward cycle of failure, and it was horrible, really horrible. It was like I was so unhappy where I was, but yet at the same time, it felt like everything I was doing just made it worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Something was coming up, and then it just sort of decided to leave. Well, I think what I wanted to say was, yes, you really began to doubt your own ability to make good decisions in your life.
Yeah.
Right?
To steer your own ship.
You really begin to doubt if you can even do this, or like why you even do these things, because they never seem to work out for you, which again is just adding on to all of the disempowering thinking and stuff that's been going on already. So where do you feel like, well, or maybe I want to start the conversation this way. The thing that can begin to help clear this up, for you to understand more of who you really are, is to really identify your values. And because the other thing with values, I think this is a big conversation in a lot of spaces right now. The other thing with values is that we do get indoctrinated into the values of our society, the values of our community, the values of our family, and the values of our workplace. This can go on, and we begin to live through these values, and they're not actually in alignment with who we really are. And this is what creates some of that discord, some of that disharmony in our life experience. So I feel like one of the very first steps is to identify what your values are. Your values, not the values that you've been indoctrinated into, not the values that you've been living your life through, potentially. Like there are values that are that you've grown into throughout your life experience,
right?
And when you identify, they're operating in the background. They are
all the time.
All the time. So they're one of two ways that they're playing out in your life. They're either playing out in an empowering way, or they're playing out in a disempowering way. Or we also like to talk about that as either being in the light or being in on the shadow side. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Like,
oh gosh, right. I mean, that's a big subject. I mean, one thing I feel like was just coming up for me when you were just saying about that was that the other, before I share a little bit more, was there's also an idea that we get to choose our values.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just want to say right now that like, that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever fell, or the biggest traps I ever fell into, was the idea that I could choose what my values were. Not that I would ever consciously try to say, right, what are my values? I'm going to choose them now. Although that has become a bit of a fashionable thing to do, is like picking your values from a list, you know. Oh, I like the idea of valuing kindness, of respect, of trust, humility, generosity, whatever it is. It's like who we would like ourselves to be, who we think we would like ourselves to be, is not who we actually are. I mean, there's a chance that some of that might line up. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in my experience, the thing that made the real difference was uncovering in evidence of my life experience what my actual values were, rather than who I thought I was or who I thought I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And because who I thought I wanted to be, as I discovered going forward, was only ever my reaction to a fear of not fitting in, or a fear of not being accepted by others, by my family, by society. And it was the idea that I should be this and I should be that in order to be a good person. That was the pretext with which I was choosing my values. And all the while, that was a story in the back of my mind that was informing that choice, which I never realized was there. It was a false belief of who I was, which was actually conditioning from my environment, from my family, from society, that had nothing to do with who I actually am and the life experience I had actually gone through. Not to say that there's anything wrong with society's values or anything wrong with my family's values or whatever, but the point is they're not mine.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that's coming up for me is, and I'm not sure that people really believe that there are any values that are bad. Maybe they do. But I think that this, what you're saying right there is like leaning on that there maybe are some values that are not as good as others, or there are some values that are more valuable than other values, right?
That's the idea that was in the book.
Yeah, there are some values that are even bad. I can't think of what that would be right now, but I just want to say that they're not. Like, their values are not good or bad, but values can play out in empowering or disempowering ways.
Yeah.
Values can play out in the light, or they can be operating in your life in the shadows, on the shadow side of that value. So, you know, kindness as a value, you can only be as kind as you have the ability to be unkind.
Yeah.
And so a value of kindness can absolutely play out on the opposite side for you.
It can play out in cruelty. It can manifest as cruelty.
Absolutely.
Which seems so counterintuitive, that if you truly value kindness, it can play out as cruelty. That's like, it don't seem right, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't seem right. So, and maybe you can help me put some words to this too, because I just feel to like share from my own experience. Once I uncovered my own values, as with many things that we'll be talking about in this podcast, but I really feel like somebody opened the blinds for me somebody removed the scales from my eyes. For me, so I have a value of belonging, and I have a value of acknowledgement, and in going through and seeing how it was identified that I have these values through sharing my life experience, right? I could see how much that this value was playing out in the shadows for me. It was showing up in such a disempowering way, because what I was doing was I was looking for my sense of belonging and for acknowledgement outside of myself.
Sure.
Now, I'm sure there are words like we just put cruelty with kindness, that we could flip, belonging and acknowledgement on their heads and show that as well. Although those words aren't coming to me right now, but I could just see like in the way that I would pursue and or stay in relationships, that it was so disempowering to me to value belonging and value acknowledgement because of the way that I was looking to bring that into my life.
Yeah. Through external means, right?
Through external means. That's exactly right. So, I kept relationships that I shouldn't have kept.
Yeah. That weren't
because,
healthy.
Right. That were not healthy for me. I kept relationships that were not healthy for me because I value belonging and because I value acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I understand that entirely. I mean, if I was to say something that's one of my values that has been authentically uncovered is peace. Now, my value of peace has had me throughout my life avoiding conflict. Right? Now, when you avoid conflict is an inevitable part of life. If you go about your life avoiding conflict, let me tell you, like from my own experience, that does not work. Right?
Right.
You can't have an up without a down. You can't have a back without a front. You cannot have peace without conflict. Right? And really, it was like truly understanding my value of peace has only that particular one has only really come recently, actually, in something I was sharing in a video recently. I was saying that I feel now that in understanding the value of peace, I can enter into engaging with conflict. Not enter into conflict, but engaging with conflict with the intention of bringing peace to the conflict.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So it doesn't have me avoiding conflict, but it does have me bringing a sense of peace, which I bring the peace. I'm not looking for the peace out there first. The peace is in here. Right. And it's like the peace comes from accepting the conflict. The peace comes from accepting the balance of the two.
Yeah.
So that, there's a peace that I bring to the situation, and that means I can then engage with the conflict and bring a sense of peace to it. And then that doesn't necessarily mean that peace happens, but there's also a sense of peace around the fact that peace might not happen because I need to be okay with conflict. And the point is that value of peace has me operating in different areas of life where there's peace and conflict, and either way, I'm okay. Now, that is when it's playing out in the light. But like I say, on the shadow side, that had me avoiding conflict. And avoiding conflict made me, it stopped me from pursuing anything difficult in my life, anything worthwhile in my life. It had me constantly being stopped and then having to start again. It had me not speaking up in areas where I was being disrespected or downtrodden, or I felt I weren't seen or acknowledged, or, in areas that I felt I had something to say, I held back, because of the fear of conflict, because to me, conflict leads to bad things. When conflict happens, bad things happen. But so much good can come of conflict, because conflict is a necessary dynamic, if you like, of two forces coming together. And initially it might look like conflict, but then something beautiful can happen as a result of that conflict. A new understanding can be uncovered as a result of conflict, like
Yeah.
it's always been the way across history, like different cultures have sort of clashed, and yet through the clash comes a yearning and a need for a deeper understanding of why the conflict is there.
Yeah.
And then
So
therefore comes through a sense of peace and understanding of each other through the conflict,
So in understanding, in identifying, uncovering what your core values are, what do you feel like that's given you access to?
Oh, gosh. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is knowing what it looks like and what it feels like to make aligned choices.
Mm-hmm.
Choices that are going to be healthy for me and the people around me, because when my needs are met, everyone around me wins. If I hold myself in a healthy space, then I don't require being propped up by other people, right? I don't become a drain on other people's energy. So I need to be able to take aligned choices. And sometimes that does require that I do ask for help, but it's done in an aligned way, not in a needy, broken way. Where, right. So it's like I'm able to make choices in my life that strengthen me and nurture me and get me to a place where I can just operate at my natural best, where it brings out my strengths and doesn't play on my weaknesses,
Yeah, I think, for me, also very similar, identifying my values. Again, I just feel like understanding how these were born into my life. And I think, first of all, just helped me to understand that my whole life has had meaning. And then the second thing that really comes up for me with that is just the level of awareness that I now have around how things show up in my life, how things are playing out in my life, and being able to recognize again how some of my values have really played out in disempowering ways in my life. And now I get to consciously choose to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
I have an awareness that helps me to not, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen still sometimes, but my level of awareness has increased, which just provides me with the opportunity to make different decisions. Based on what it is that I know now. Yeah.
It's like when you were saying about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen anymore. It's like what I was sharing about my value of peace and how in the past it had me avoiding conflict left, right, and centre. Of course, I still enter into patterns of avoiding conflict where it needs to be engaged with. But the point is that I recognise it quicker now.
Yes.
I don't end up going down a lifetime of deceiving myself that conflict is something that can and should be avoided, because it absolutely is neither of those.
Right.
Conflict is a necessary and vital and inevitable part of life that, if embraced, can lead to very beautiful things. It doesn't mean you engage with it, but that's what I was making it mean, you see.
Right.
It's empowered me to operate from another place, but I still get drawn in quite a lot into that. That's a big one for me. And that's how I know that peace is such a powerful value for me.
Yeah.
Because that's the area I often fail and often get drawn into, and it's just having that understanding just makes it okay when things fall out of alignment, when I fall foul to my weaknesses or to my vulnerabilities, because I understand how that happened, and it allows me to hold a space of compassion and understanding for myself, rather than beating myself up for, oh, you've gone and done it again, look what you've done, oh, I knew that you'd do this again, I'm just no good at this, I should just not try. Or all of that victim-based thinking, it just removes all of the victimhood around it, and it makes it okay to fail. It brings you into a very human space where it's okay for things not to go right. It's okay for us to fail sometimes, you know? And that's a nice space to be, because it allows compassion for ourselves, and it also allows far more compassion and understanding for others. It deepens relationships. It opens up the possibility for understanding and impact and making a difference to others as well, you know.
Yeah. So you, and uncovering your values, you begin to get a better understanding of why your life has looked the way that it has, why things have played out the way that they have for you, and what is really important. That is what core values are all about. It's defining what is the most important to you. And so once you've done that, you know, we talked a lot about chasing shiny objects, or chasing this feeling that there's something more for us, and not being able to quit doing that, but then also feeling like we never arrived at the destination, right? The vision, this destination is always moving.
Yeah, moving.
It's always moving, right? So once you have identified your values, uncovered your values, the thing that gives you access to is actually articulating a vision for your life, and which is the highest value. You could look at it as that. It's the highest value. It's the way, the world that you envision living in, that is ideal. And it's not about, I think one important thing to say about vision, this will probably come up later too, but it's not about making it something that you feel like you can complete in 3 to 5 years. This is about creating a vision for your life that's higher than anything that probably at this point you would ever imagine possible in your lifetime. So go ahead.
I was going to say there's a saying in there. If your vision occurs to you as achievable, then you're not dreaming big enough.
Right.
So it's like it's like that. Whilst it's like, well, why would you set yourself an impossible goal like that? and to speak into that a little bit from my own experience, it's like, and I feel this leads into the next part of the conversation for us.
Yeah.
Is that the point is, it's not the content of the vision, it's the direction in which it takes you.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's a constant point of reference in the distance, if you like, and it's only the distance because you perceive it as not being reachable, right? Then you're constantly heading towards it, and therefore your life looks like a reflection of what it means to have that vision manifest in your life, right? You begin to become the person who is having that vision. You begin to live the life of the person who is in alignment with that vision.
Right.
You begin to have the results of the person that is in alignment with that vision. And it's that, for me, the key point here is it's that constant point of reference. We refer to it, don't we, as your North Star.
Yes.
We refer to the vision as the North Star, your constant point of reference, because the North Star is the one star in the sky that is a constant point of reference. No matter what changes in the sky, the North Star will always lead you in the right direction, right? This is why all navigation is based upon it. And it's the same in navigating our life. In navigating our life, we need a constant point of reference, because otherwise we end up with that situation you were talking about the goalposts are always moving. You know, there's this moving target. We're aiming at things and we never get there because we haven't got that constant point of reference to aim toward. And this is what also speaking into what my experience was in the past, of feeling like a donkey chasing a carrot. You know, I just felt like a bit of an idiot, if I'm honest, because I was never ever getting there. And it was like, this is a bit of a joke. And I can see the funny side of this, but I'm suffering here and I've got a family to support. This isn't really feeling very funny right now, if I'm honest. It's like, I need to sort this out. And it was getting in touch with that constant point of reference that actually gave me, I feel, the real breakthrough in creating something that was going to make a difference.
Even in just listening to you speak about that, I have this real sense of like calm and peace, and a sense of like, I just know where home is. I know where home is, so I can continuously aim toward home. And I will, even in making my way toward that destination, there is a sense of being at home because you're in alignment with it.
A sense of coming home. Absolutely. It's a homecoming feeling. It's a warm feeling when you're in alignment with that direction. And
like you were saying, it is the constant. And I think maybe that's also why it feels like home, because there is that sense of, well, I can always go home, right? Even when we're just talking about our family homes or whatever, there is a draw to that in some way. Yeah. And it's the same with your vision. And then, the thing about it being likely unattainable in your lifetime doesn't mean that you won't do anything. It just means that every step, every move that you're making in your life is in alignment. It's in alignment with manifesting this vision into the world. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that are getting done, and you have the ability, the capacity to be more discerning in what it is that you're saying yes to and what it is that you're saying no to, because back to the values, the values are like the constellations in the sky. So the sky isn't always the same. The clouds can be covering things up, but if we have constellations in the sky, it gives us a point of reference to orient us toward the North Star.
Yeah.
And so I also like to think, I know there's like lots of analogies we could use here, but I also, every time I talk about this, I think about, when you go bowling and they've got the little bumper pads that they put in the the pockets on the side so that the kids can bowl and actually knock down the pins, and that's what the values feel like to me. It's like the values are the bumper pads. And it helps to keep you aligned with the vision, which is also articulated within the spirit of the values. But then, I don't know if there's something else that you have to say to that, but I'm feeling like we could move on to mission.
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I could talk about this forever, right? So
we could. So then the question is, how are you going to get there? Now you know where you're going. Right? You have the North Star, you have the constellations to keep you in alignment with that. The question is, how are you going to get there? Which really brings in the mission and stating a mission for your life, which again would be in the spirit of the values. And we were talking about this a little bit before we jumped on to record this episode. And I really loved what you were saying about this. So you want to jump in there and share what your experience of the mission is?
Yeah, well, in my experience, like there was a short period of time between uncovering my values and values and vision, and then my mission statements. And that was a period of time that shouldn't have happened, but it was just the way that the process panned out. Now, it was just perfect, really, because what it gave me was an understanding of the true value of the mission. It's like indirectly, it taught me a lesson. And what that lesson was that, when I uncovered my values and my vision, and it made a lot of things make sense to me. A lot of things, it made the past, it brought a lot of peace to the past. It brought a lot of understanding to how I feel about certain issues. It brought a lot of ability for me to hold compassion for myself and others. Yet I was still not able to change anything really. And what I was sharing to you as well before in that conversation before this call was that, it felt like, okay, I've had my vision and values uncovered. You may as well just read me my horoscope. It was like, I understand something about me now that feels so abstract, and I just can't do anything with it. It's a nice to know, and it kind of feels different to me. But my life hasn't changed because I haven't got access to taking any action, because I still don't know what to do about it. And then once that period of time had elapsed, and then we actually completed the process, and then we uncovered my mission statements as well that were absolutely a byproduct of the vision and values. The mission statements brought so much clarity to me, because I'm a very practical person. I like to be able to do something. You know, I'm like, yeah, okay, you've given me all these abstract concepts, but what do I do with that? How does this actually change my life? How is this going to help me create a living that I enjoy, where I can provide for my family, and it's actually going to make a real difference in real life rather than just in my head, right? Or how I feel inside. This doesn't change anything in what's going on in the circumstances of my life, right? So I want access to action. What can I do? And the mission statements for me really brought that home. It was like a real feeling of just dropping in the missing piece of the jigsaw for me. And then it made the whole picture, the vision, the mission, the values, all just make sense. They all just dropped in together. And that is my point here, that all three of those are mutually dependent on each other. They are all important and all have their own worth and for me, their own value, pardon the pun. But when the mission statements dropped in, it was like I now had access to ideas all of a sudden about what I could do to create a life that was aligned with my values, to create a life that was headed in the direction of my highest vision. That, you know, it was like, and even like on a daily basis, you know, in this space that me and you are stepping into, we need to be creating videos on a daily basis, you know, and that can be quite an overwhelming thing, especially when, you know, the videos we're sharing about aren't telling people what to do and stuff. We're talking about stuff that affects people's lives, and there's so much we could talk about. It's like, well, what do you share? Where do you start? And the mission statements gives me a place to start. They tie me in, even on a daily basis, as to from what kind of intention I can be sharing these videos from. And as soon as I lock into the intention and I look at the problem at hand, I immediately get perspective on what that video is going to be about. Now, that's just a very, very narrow look at what mission has done for me. But it's just to say that on a daily basis, it helps me. And on a larger basis across my longer reaching life, it has also really helped me lock into how I'm going to go about creating this space with you, alongside you, you know, what it means to be in action for our community, the things we're going to put in place to support people and support ourselves going forward, things that are aligned, and then actually having the ideas of what it is I can create, you know, courses we can create, things we can put in place, videos we can make, how we can reach people, how we can make a bigger impact and get our message out there. You know, it's like in a way that is in alignment and isn't manipulating anybody. It's only serving people, and it feels good to do. It doesn't feel like something I have to do.
Yeah.
I feel cool to do it, and I'm excited, you know.
I think the big thing there is that then what you do really just is who you are.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm feeling so much in everything that you're sharing there.
That's perfect. Yeah. Because like just to add to that, just very briefly, Tiff, is like that for me has been the biggest issue across my life. Like right from back when, you know, I felt my career was just nothing to do with who I was. There was what I was doing and who I was felt like the two most opposite things. And I've in holding the intention to close the gap between who I am and what I do, I can see those things coming together. And exactly that, I feel like I'm living into my actual life. I'm no longer a spectator in my own life. Who I
Right.
am and what I do are becoming very, very closely intertwined.
And the mission statement really, really helps to bring that together in a very, the mission is not a step-by-step thing.
No,
Like it also has its own level of being broad, but like you were saying, it just gives you access to ideas as to what to do to bring your vision into reality. And it's really, I mean, there's no other way that could be, actually, because even in the process of creating your mission statements, you look at your vision and you break it down into parts, and you're like, okay, well, how could I bring this into the world? How could I bring this into the world? How could I bring this into the world? And then once you have those statements, again, you can break these down into smaller action items, like, and that can go down many levels, actually, into bringing this into the world. One other thing that was really coming up for me as you were sharing is, in the beginning of creating a methodology and trying to wrap my head around what it was that I even wanted to bring into the world. Yeah. I remember there being a point of time when I knew that I wanted to create a membership. Okay, right. So what's the membership going to be about? Big freaking question mark over the top of my head. Yeah. Right? I remember that. And then I remember tapping back into my mission, vision, and values and reading my mission statements. And I was like, well, that's what my membership is going to be about. Like, fulfilling on all of my mission statements. Done. Easy.
Yeah.
And even though everything has flipped on its head since then, and something completely new has come out of all of that, I still believe that what we are creating together, the membership that we've created together, is fulfilling each and every one of my mission statements.
Absolutely.
Every single one of them. And so there really is this sense of what I do is who I am. And that is very much also connected to the sense of being at home. And I think you mentioned, I think it was in this one, but before, where I'd said about belonging to my life. So belonging is one of my values. And the way that I see that playing out in my life now is that I have a real sense of belonging to my life, which is something that I don't think that I experienced until probably this last year. I was always searching for that belonging outside. And now I feel like I belong in my own life.
Yeah, amazing. That is pretty much as well what I was saying about who I am and what I do being two different things.
Yeah.
And now it's a matter of, there is no what I do. There's just who I am. Right. So this isn't what we do. This is who we are.
Yes.
Right? It's like, that's a great place to be. You know what you were saying a minute ago? You were saying about how it seems like everything's flipped on its head, but you feel that what has been created does still reflect your mission statements.
Yeah.
I feel that as well in a way, but I feel that what that is for me is that it hasn't flipped on its head. It's just that it doesn't look how I expected it to look. Right.
Yeah, so it's so much that.
I had this expectation about how it would look to fulfill on these things. And in letting go of that, we allowed this to be created. We allowed this to create itself and express itself through us, right?
Yes.
And as it continues to do so. And yet continuously it brings surprises. We never know what's coming, but we are always listening and always in response to what life shows us, in response to what we're co-creating here in this space that we're creating, right? So it's really is, the letting go of the need to know what it's going to actually look like, and just showing up, because it's that, for me, that ability to just show up. Why is that important to me? It's like, because I don't need to be anyone or do anything. I just need to show up as me, because I'm already enough. And that's really all it takes to arrive in your own life, to stop becoming a participant. Sorry, to become a participant and stop becoming a spectator in your own life, is to give yourself permission to just show up and allow whatever comes to be perfect, to just allow whatever comes to come. And it's just feedback for us to just continue the journey if we're listening, and then we just get to show up again. We're already enough, right? We're already as we are, just with the understanding of our values and our vision, showing up as we are, vulnerably and authentically in this space, just allowing this thing to show us what it needs to be and being in response to it, Right.
There's a level of just being able to relax into your own life, because again, you have the bumpers. You have the constellations, you have the North Star, to keep you in alignment, where when you don't have those things clarified for yourself, when you haven't uncovered and articulated these things for yourself, there still is a level of doubt that you experience in what it is that you're choosing. And I think that for me has made all the difference.
What happens, I feel we get manipulated by the personality into making choices for stopping things that we should carry on and starting things that we shouldn't really be starting. We get manipulated by the personality, our idea about who we think we should be, rather than who we actually really are.
And living into the values that we've been indoctrinated into.
Exactly.
Which is just, it will inevitably happen unless you uncover your top values for yourself. And again, the only way both of us would ever recommend anybody doing that is actually going through a process where what is uncovered is actually based in evidence.
Has to be.
And it's not just something that you pick from a list. Like you said, I mean, if I were to have chosen my values from a list, I maybe would have come up with 2 or 3 of the ones that are actually in my top 10. But there are definitely ones that are in my top 10 that I never would have considered picking.
Right.
Because I would have felt like, it made me look weak.
Right.
Or ungrateful, or selfish. There are all kinds of things. And I think that really speaks into what I was saying before. Like, there's this idea that people feel like some values are worthy and some are not. Some are good, some are bad. And that's really not the truth.
No, of course. That thing where you say you got this, a lot of your values come through as a surprise to you. You really wouldn't have said that they would have been in your top 10 because they've been uncovered in evidence, right? It was like, it's a great thing. It makes sense that's a surprise to us, right? Because the point is, our life isn't working, right? There's something about our life that isn't working. And the reason our life doesn't work is because we're out of integrity with who we are. Right? If there's anywhere in our life where something isn't working, it's because somewhere in our being we're out of integrity with who we really are. So if we feel our life isn't working and all the time we've been operating into what we thought were our values, well, if they're not our values, well, then that's why our life isn't working. Right. Now we've got these values that we didn't have any idea we valued. These things in our life that we had no idea were true, deep core values of who we really are. Aligning ourselves to these things, all of a sudden our life starts to work. It's like, it's a good thing that it's a surprise, because that makes sense why your life wasn't working.
Right? Totally. Yeah. This is an ongoing conversation, many more conversations around the value of values and why it's so important to uncover these for yourselves and articulate a vision and state a mission for your life, and how helpful that is. Like I said, many more conversations on that. Do you have any just last things that you want to highlight again before we wrap up?
I think the most important thing, and I know we've just touched on it literally just then, but I just feel to say that, our values, we cannot choose our values. Your values are not something that you choose. If your values were something that you could choose, then you'd be able to go to the gym and keep going. You'd be able to choose to have a diet and stick to that diet. You'd be able to say what you're going to do and just do it and never ever be stopped in anything. So the reason why nothing works is because we think we know who we are, right? Yeah. And so uncovering who we really are at the core of our being, based in evidence, gives us access to actually living into a life that works. Not a life that we think we want, but a life that is based on who we actually are, Yeah.
I think we should just leave it at that. So really great place to wrap up. And I always love having this conversation and looking forward to taking this further. So until next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you for showing up for yourself and exploring this space with us. We are a stand for you to follow your calling, whatever that might be.
Be sure to subscribe, and if you're interested in playing with the concepts that we share in this space, we'd encourage you to go to thepolarisgame.com/play and grab our free training. And you can also find that link in the show notes.